call this meeting of the Rotary Club of Oakland to order. I am Dudley Thompson, and I have the honor to be president of the Rotary Club. We're the third oldest Rotary Club in the world of some 36,000 clubs in over 200 countries. We're a diverse community of approximately 300 local business, professional, and community leaders who unite to improve local and international communities through a common commitment to service above self. For over 113 years, we have welcomed Rotarians and guests to our club meetings, and I welcome you to this 5,350th meeting of the Rotary Club of Oakland. For those of you on Zoom, please enter your name in the, please use the chat icon at the bottom of the screen. You can enter your name in the chat box that's located at the bottom of the screen so that we can recognize you in a few minutes if you're a guest of a Rotarian or another guest. We also recommend that you view today's meeting using the speaker view that's located in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. If you have comments or want to ask a question of the speaker, please use the chat box. For those of you here in the California ballroom, I ask that you not use your electronic device to watch the meeting on Zoom or to connect to the ballroom Wi-Fi. So we are all still in uncertain times of the pandemic. Under current Alameda guidelines and our club protocols, it is required that you wear a mask inside if you're not eating or drinking. I realize this is awkward and can be very annoying, but please pull your mask up. We're trying to make this a safe space and make it as safe as possible so that our members and guests can be here and still have a great meeting. Jason, do you have a thought for the day? Do you have anything interesting to tell us?
Thank you, President Dudley. I have a thought every day. My thought for today and every day is be kind. There's a lot bubbling up in our world these days. Natural disasters, Delta, Lambda, and beyond. The rise of authoritarianism and democracy's frailty. Cultural wars, actual wars. So be kind. Be kind to the mother, be kind to your other, your neighbor, yourself. That's a Twain quote that I love that made me think about this, which is, kindness is the language which the deaf can hear and the blind can see. And that's what I love about Rotary. We're always kind. Thank you, President Dudley.
Thank you for the thought you had today, Jason. So will you please join me in the Rotary Vision? Together, we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. We also look at the Rotary Club mission statement, the Rotary Club of Oakland, and if you can read it there, please join me. We serve people in our Oakland community and throughout the world by advancing world understanding, goodwill, and peace. The Rotary Club of Oakland welcomes people of all backgrounds, cultures, experiences, and identities, and we strive for the fair treatment, equal opportunity, and advancement of all Rotary participants to create experiences where all people feel respected, valued, and that you belong. Thank you. Ed Jellen, do we have any visiting Rotarians today?
President Dudley, nobody checked in as a visiting Rotarian. If anybody here is a visiting Rotarian that didn't check in, let yourself be known now. I don't see any hands up. We do have some terrific guests with us today.
We've got a lot of guests today, yeah. So this will be fun.
And I'm going to hand
up. I do know Dianne Dorn is here with us.
I didn't see her, but There she is. Hi, Diane. Past president, Rotary Club of San Leandro.
Yeah. For those of you new to the club, Diane is here almost every week. She's the partner of our executive administrator, Jesse Powell. So let me ask first, online, are there any guests?
Don't see anybody.
Sandeep, are you out there? No guests today. Okay, let's start this. I know we have several. Please, okay, Fred Morse is a mic runner. Let's start with the back. Isaac stood up first. Okay, Shannon has a mic too.
Yes, President Dudley, I'm very honored to be joined today by my guest, Ed Dorn, the new head of Chapel of Rotarians. Please welcome him to our wonderful club.
Fred, could you get a mic over to Georgia Richardson?
Oh, George.
Hello, President Dudley. I have the honor of introducing two guests today. One is Dr. Angela Clausett. She is a DEI consultant and advisor and also a real estate teammate. Secondly, I have the honor of introducing Terry Wiley, Chief Assistant District Attorney, Alameda County, and he is the candidate for Alameda County District Attorney. So welcome, Terry.
I think there's more guests. David Kersten?
Hi, David Kersten. My pleasure to introduce Angel Wax, who's an insurance agent with Allstate. So welcome back to Oakland Rotary. Thank you.
Do we have any other guests here too? Renee Webb.
Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians. So glad to see you all in the flesh. This is my first meeting as an official board of director, so I'm just happy to be here. Today I have two guests. I have Miss Christine Saunders-Berg, who is a former public school teacher, formerly with the Alameda County DA's office, and also the campaign manager for Mr. Jimmy Wilson, who will be 2022 Alameda County DA candidate. And to my right here, I have Mr. Jimmy Wilson, who is currently with the Alameda County DA's office, which is very popular today. And actually, he has his application in, so hopefully he'll be joining our Rotary Club.
Okay, any other guests? We had a little reception this afternoon going into afternoon, and I put a special invitation out to Rotarians that had joined the club since January, a couple months before the pandemic, but I know some people didn't make it those first 2 months, so coming back. So I'd like to start off with all of the Rotarians who joined from January 2020 to now, well, I guess the last 2 weeks. Could you please stand up and could you get mics? I'm going to say I haven't, I'm just meeting people for the first time. Would you please give us your names and so that I know you too?
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Shang Tao. You may know me as an Oakland City Council member, but today I'm a Rotarian. Thank you for having me.
And I joined in April of 2020, and proud to be an Oakland Rotarian. Thank you.
David Kersten. I joined in March 2020, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Nancy Williams. I joined in February of this year, and I am very glad to be a Rotarian.
Pauline Fox. I joined February 27th, 2020. Timing is everything. So glad to have been a greeter today, to have met all of you.
Go ahead, Deep.
Yeah, I'm Deep. I joined only a few days back. Thank you.
I was late.
Okay.
Derek Johnson, and I joined, when did I join? A couple of months ago. Last week, no, about 2-3 months ago. Hello, I'm Sandeep Rajbandari. I joined about 3 weeks ago. Thank you. Hi, I'm Peter Agnoletti. I joined last month. Looking forward to being in Rotary. Thank you and welcome. So I will say one thing about Pauline Fox.
Next June, after you demote me and get rid of me, and I say, I'm going to New York City, I'm going to walk out this door and go to Pauline Fox's apartment, 3 blocks from where I used to live in New York City. So thank you for Pauline for putting that up for auction at our gala a couple of years ago. And and I think there's 1,200 feet, so I think there's enough room for about 30 of you to join me too. So for the right price, you can come along. Although you have to talk with Coach, I'm not sure she's on that idea. Sess. So last year, Sess Butner was our president, and Sess just didn't get much time up here at the podium. Sess, would you come up here for a second? So I'm going to try to give Sess as much podium time as I can this year, but he's been bugging me a little bit about, somebody said it was Sess Butner Day. I think it was June 24th, if I'm not mistaken, but I never saw that proclamation. So we found it. So I can't make Groundhog Day, and I'm not going to read the whole thing again. You can go back and watch the YouTube. But Sess, congratulations for the mayor's proclamation making June 24th, 2021, Sess Butner Day.
I thought they were just kidding when they said it was Sess Butner Day. I thought it was just a joke for Rotary. But the mayor did do this for us after our last year, and I'm just so happy to be back here live in person, because we didn't get to do that very much my year. It was mostly on Zoom. And I know we're in good hands with Dudley as president this year, and I'm just happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Steve, would you introduce our new members?
Thank you, President Dudley. We have the honor of inducting today the Oakland Symphony into our club with a corporate membership, which I would remind everybody is a great way of having your business friends join the club. So I thought 2 interesting facts about the symphony, actually 3, founded in 1933, which is older than some of the club members even. A couple of interesting facts. 54% of the orchestra are women now. That's wonderful to hear. And they're getting out to 21 schools in the Oakland Unified School District. So another great thing that the Symphony is doing locally for our community. So they're going to be represented by our beloved Michael Morgan, who I think is not here today, still recovering from some recent surgery. But Dr. Mieko Hatano is here with us, and she's the executive director, dynamic woman, and we look forward to seeing her at more meetings. That's all I got, Doug.
Mako, are you on here? Can we spotlight Mako?
everyone.
We're getting there, Nico.
Thanks for having me.
There we go. Welcome. That's a great smile. Nico, we're so happy that you've chosen to join us, both you, Michael, and the Oakland Symphony. Know that your family and your friends are always welcome to join us and to participate in our projects and events. By choosing us, you've accepted the Rotary Vision and also to conduct yourself according to the four-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Here in the ballroom, we have your red badges, which will indicate your new member status. Information and the history, and also a book about the history of the Rotary Club of Oakland. Now, I think we'll probably send you one of the books because I think Michael has 3 of them already so far. Michael, every time a speaker comes, we share with them one of the books. So anyway, and then you'll also receive a roster of your new 300 best friends. You'll receive a Rotary pin, a symbol that identifies you as a Rotarian, and we hope that you will wear it with pride. Your commitment is to attend meetings, participate in service activities, practice service above self, and contribute to the Rotary Foundation and the Rotary Endowment. It is my pleasure and a privilege to induct you as the newest member of the Rotary Club of Oakland. And everybody here in the room is going to be standing up, and when you come join us, we'll give you a round of applause. Thank you, Nico, and extend our thoughts to Michael, too.
President Dudley, Joan rang the bell for the Oakland Symphony. And for Michael Morgan.
Okay, Joe Gawalka, wasn't it? Joe Gawalka. Thank you, Joe. Michael Bruck, could you come up here? Is there something going on next week that you care to share with us?
Well, President Dudley, I believe there is. I'm here to invite everyone to the August Cocktails with the President. President Dudley and your entertainment committee will be gathering at 5:30 next Thursday, August 19th at Calavera Mexican Kitchen and Bar, 2337 Broadway. It's at the heart of downtown Oakland, the Hive, those of you who know where the Hive is. As an extra special incentive for you to attend, our member Ruth Stroop will be buying your first, there's Ruth right here, will be buying your first margarita and a few snacks for you. So thank you, Ruth. Calavera has a great cocktail menu in addition to the margaritas with some really interesting drinks. One that I found this morning is called a duck-washed mezcal cocktail. I have no idea how a duck gets involved in that, but I'm sure President Dudley will fill us in next week. See you next Thursday, the 19th, 5:30 at Calavera. Thanks.
Thank you, Michael. So the first couple meetings, we started to present committees to you. The second meeting, we had, I think, 6 of our committees present. In the last couple of weeks, we've had other committees sharing with you what they do, what it's like if you would become a member of the committee. And even if you don't become a member of the committee, there's other things you can do to help out. On your tables is a list of the committees for this year and a brief description of each. It has the chair of the committee and their email address. And I would ask you to take one of the sign-up sheets, and if you're at least interested or want to learn a little bit more about that committee, would you please just check off 1, 2, or 3, and Jack is out down here recruiting. He needs a little help, and it gets better. It really does. It helps to grovel, too. I learned that. Okay. Keith, would you introduce our speaker for the day, please?
Thank you, President Dudley. First of all, I'd like to thank Robert Kidd and the Speakers Committee for inviting our speaker today, Liz Ortega Toro, and also in recognizing the Labor Day weekend, a holiday that is will be coming up in a few weeks, and also the importance of organized labor in Alameda County and in Oakland. Liz practices, as we just saw on the screen, the four-way test of Rotary on a daily basis. And perhaps Liz would consider being a member of Oakland Rotary. And well, and I would be honored to be your sponsor.
And the answer is yes.
Thank you. Never give up an opportunity to ask a person to join Rotary, right? Okay. So with that, I'd like to introduce the Executive Secretary Treasurer of the Alameda County Labor Council, Liz Ortega Toro. Liz?
I forgot to bring my little step stool.
Yeah. Do we still have one?
Oh, no, it's okay. I was just kidding.
No, actually, one of our past presidents who was much shorter than you were.
Oh,
so
really?
We do have a step stool.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you all for inviting me here today. I'm really excited to not only be speaking in front of you, but now being a new member. My name is Liz Ortega Toro. I am the Executive Secretary Treasurer of the Alameda Labor Council. For those who are not familiar with the Labor Council, we represent 135,000 union members in Alameda County. That's 135 different unions that come under the umbrella of the council. And I was elected to the seat almost 3 years ago. Although with COVID, it definitely feels like 100. I'm also proud to say that I'm the first Latina to ever be elected to the seat in the history of the Labor Council, which has been around for almost 100 years. But my mom's even more proud of this, and my dad, both having come to this country undocumented. And if you ever wonder where I get my grit or my willingness to fight for folks, you just have to look at my mom, who decided to bring her 2 babies to this country by herself and through a very dangerous journey. And that was, many years ago, that I have tried to repay this country by not only becoming a resident and a U.S. citizen, but taking a job that allows me to work hard on behalf of all working families and youth who look like me, who don't have a voice, for better health care, for better paychecks, and for more security at work. And so that's what I do. When folks ask, what does the Labor Council do? What do you, with all these people? And I just see you guys out there striking and picketing and fighting. That is some of what I do and some of what we do collectively. But most of all, we do it for the things that I just laid out. We do it for fighting for better health care. Currently, the #1 reason people file for bankruptcy, and we've seen it now even with COVID, is because they can't afford health care. And aren't able to provide that for themselves or their families. Better paychecks, often at the negotiating table with employers to make sure that a lot of the members that I represent don't have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to pay the rent. And so really fight to make sure that in an area as rich as the Bay Area, the workers should just have one job, and one job should be enough to live and have a family here in this beautiful city of Oakland. And lastly, security at work, just ensuring that the workers I represent are able to, go to work, be able to speak out without being worried about being terminated or retaliated against. And we've seen this more and more through this year of COVID, where a lot of the folks that I represent, didn't have access to PPE, or protective gear, masks, or proper, gloves. There was a lot of things that were happening that they were afraid to speak out of, and we were able to be there for them, to be that voice, to make sure that not only were they protected at work, but that our communities and our kids and our families were protected. I didn't have when Keith invited me, asked me to come and speak, I was excited. I said, of course, I'll be there. I'll have a whole PowerPoint presentation. I've got all kinds of slides and videos. And then my daughter had an accident last week where she broke her leg. And so today I almost didn't know if I was going to make it. But I want to, give you guys an opportunity to ask me questions. I know there's a lot of folks that don't really understand what labor does or what the unions do, and why they're so important. Unfortunately, last week we also lost President Trumpka. He's our national AFL-CIO president, who passed away of a heart attack unexpectedly. And while he leaves behind a huge legacy of fighting, he also leaves behind hope for a new generation to continue to work for those that don't have a voice. In addition to the work that I do at the Labor Council, I also established a nonprofit organization called Fuerza. It's strength. Is that my phone that's causing the echo? Sorry about that. We opened a nonprofit organization called Fuerza that was designed to assist our members who, in training and education, but through COVID, it ended up being a lifesaver for many undocumented workers who were coming to the Labor Council who didn't have access to a lot of the state or federal monies that were being made available to other folks who were in similar situations. So through our nonprofit, we were able to partner with a lot of different organizations, employers, the United Way, and others, and created a fund so that we could help a lot of these workers throughout the Bay Area with, payments for their rent, payments for PG&E, their cell phones, their car, their gas. Through this nonprofit, we help thousands of workers in the Bay Area. So those are just some of the things that our council does and will continue to do as we continue to try to get ourselves out of this worldwide pandemic. But one thing I like to say is I hear folks talk about, let's go back to normal. Normal was not good enough before, and normal is not going to be good enough going forward. We have to work harder for a lot more. So thank you, and I'll open it up for questions or comments.
We got a couple mic runners here.
Thank you very much for your comments today. First of all, directed to Dudley, I'd like to ring the bell today on behalf of my father, who was a labor organizer, shop steward, and part of the San Francisco Labor Council for many years. My question for you My question for you is, when my father was organizing, it was a different time back in the 60s. Today, as you organize, do you find yourself having to not just educate those who are not part of the labor union, but those who are trying to organize into a labor union?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we're constantly, it's no secret that the labor movement has shrank in several years, in the last decades or two, where in the private sector we're down to 3%. Luckily in California, that's not the case. But definitely, we're thinking about new models of organizing, new ways of talking to workers. In fact, just recently we were able to organize 3,000 AAA members in the Bay Area without ever meeting them face to face. This is unprecedented. We've never done this. Usually, traditionally, when you try to organize new union members, there's a lot of one-on-ones, a lot of house visits, a lot of work that goes into building those relationships. And with this campaign, we had 3,000 new members without ever once meeting them face to face. And so that's just a new example of, the way to move the labor movement forward is to continue to, keep up with technology, but also there's a lot of laws in place that prevent us from being able to organize. And so working at the national level to be able to pass things like the PRO Act that would not make it easier, but not make it easier for employers to prevent workers who want to be in a union to sign up and be in a union by, intimidating or harassing or firing them when they're interested in joining the union.
I have a question, and I'm holding the mic, so I guess I'll jump right in. Thank you so much for coming. Listen, I'm an employer, and I'm actually faced today with my client base requiring vaccinations for COVID, and I have 18 people and 2 are non-vaccinated. And so I'm curious, I have to, HR tells me I can make certain actions. I'm curious how the union would approach such a mandate, because it is happening, and I think it's important, and I'm curious what the union stance is on that.
First of all, I'll speak for the Labor Council and the unions that I represent. We're all supporting vaccinations. We think everyone should have access to vaccinations. I've been part of the Alameda County task force to make sure that vaccinations were available equitably throughout Alameda County. A lot of the members that I represent had to go to work when vaccinations weren't out. They didn't have the luxury of working from home, and we're actually many of the first to get sick, and then didn't have, so I wanted to make sure that they weren't the first to get sick and the last to get a vaccine. So we're extremely supportive of our members getting vaccinated. In terms of the mandates, where there's collective bargaining units, as you know, we're going into negotiations with a lot of the different employers, but we're putting public health first and really pushing for that. It's a developing kind of discussion that's happening with the different bargaining units. But I know that even yesterday at Oakland Unified School District, our president, Keith Brown, was there supporting the mandate for vaccinations.
Liz, my father was a lifelong member in the Plumbers Union Local 78 in Los Angeles. That's right. He loved his union, and I tell you, my whole family's indebted to the labor movement for having allowed him, a high school dropout, to kind of move into the middle class. When he was a union guy, there were strikes, there were job actions, and sometimes that was pretty exciting because that meant Dad was home instead of working, and we always enjoyed his company. But it seems like what I see the labor union, the movement now, is really involved in politics. I noticed that here in Oakland, during municipal elections, the unions are very prominent, and so on. And I'm wondering if when did that happen, or what is the thinking in the labor movement about focusing on bread and butter issues as opposed to focusing on public policy, political issues?
Well, I say we can't do one without the other. It's not an if or an or. We have to do both. And that's how I lead our council. We can't grow our membership if we're not involved in what's happening. Let's say the Black Lives Matter movement. I have letter carriers, African-American members who have been harassed and who have been discriminated against. Bus drivers, African-Americans who have been pulled over on their way to work. So I don't separate the two. I really believe that you can't have the bread and butter and not have the social issues. They're two in one. In terms of the politics, labor unions have always been part of the Democratic Party. In fact, I could say there wouldn't be a Democratic Party if it wasn't for the labor movement. And so, we have to figure out a way to continue to push both. Hold elected officials accountable, elect folks who share our values, and also support what's happening in the community because they're not separate.
Hi, I'm Mary Jiang, and I want to ask you a question about the recent passage by the Ubers and the Lyfts and the gig economy, which was a pushback against the labor union. They get to be carved out, exempt out. Do you see more other industry trying to go that route, saying, oh, we're exception from unionization? How do you guys handle this situation?
Yeah, I'll say something that's not very popular, but I'm used to that. To me, the gig economy is just a fancy word for, not paying workers, for stolen wages. I met with a lot of the workers. The amount of money that the gig companies put into that campaign was incredibly one of the most expensive campaigns in the history of California, when all they had to do was, pay the workers and give them a voice. So it wasn't so much about not having the money, it was more about the ideology of having workers standing together to have a voice. And yes, I do see other employers and other large companies doing exactly the same thing. And I will continue to fight to ensure that workers have the right to organize and unionize. And I'll going back to the PRO Act that we're trying to pass at the national level that would prevent employers from doing things like Uber and Lyft did, which was, having their drivers come in for one-on-ones, intimidating them, harassing them, things like that would make it illegal for them to do things when workers have a choice.
We have a question from online. Stephanie Kazenza wants to know, over the next 3 years, what are the council's priorities?
They don't change much. I'll go back to what I said earlier. My priorities and the council's priorities are always the same. It's improving workers' wages. It's making sure my members have access to health care, and making sure that we have elected officials that share our values, and those that don't, figure out a way to hold them accountable.
Hi, back in the room here. I actually have two questions. One is you had mentioned new forms of organizing with AAA, and I was curious if you could fill us in a little bit about the sort of, I guess Alabama was unionizing Amazon. Can you tell us a little bit about what that rejection was and why they're doing it again? And then secondly, you had said that you came over, I guess, with your mom, and I was curious if you could tell us a little bit about, your pathway to citizenship and share that story.
Yeah, Amazon, it was in Alabama. I wouldn't have chosen Alabama as a place to go organize, but, but it was the workers were the ones who wanted to have that organizing drive there, and so we did it. There was a lot of lessons learned. You talk about the bread and butter issues and why it's so important to have both. And that organizing drive, the employers actually had, Amazon had access to the city council members. And there was a stop sign or a stoplight where workers had to stop before they got to the plant. And that's where a lot of the conversations were happening with the organizers and, you know, having conversations with workers. So the company went to the city council and had the stoplight changed so that it wouldn't, the amount of time that the red light was on took a lot less time. And that was very tactical on their part to take away our ability to talk to workers. So they have thousands of millions of dollars. Currently, they're trying to, you know, come to the Bay Area. Recently, I learned that they're trying to come to Hayward. I want to make something clear. I'm not against employers. You know, I always get this rap that we're against employers. That's not the case. I actually partner with a lot of employers, but we want responsible employers. We want employers who care about the workers and the communities that they are in. Currently, Amazon is not doing that in Alabama. They're not doing that in the Central Valley where they have these distribution centers that are causing kids with high asthma and cancer rates. And now they're trying to move to the Bay Area where they're coming in and saying, we want this piece of land, we want to open up another distribution center, but we're not going to give you any taxes, we're not going to give you any community benefits. In fact, you're lucky we're even coming here. And that's not the kind of employer that I don't think any of us want. And so we'll continue to fight that fight with Amazon and other employers like them. You asked about my childhood personal story? Yes? Okay. So I have a very, you know, typical immigrant story. My dad came first to Oakland. He wanted a better life for my mom and myself and my little brother at the time. And he came here undocumented, got a job at a restaurant, was trying to save money to get my mom and me and my brother to come. But my mom, being my mom, got tired of waiting. And she kept calling my dad and saying, you know, I'm ready. When are you going to come get me? And he was like, give me more time. We need to get settled. So my mom decided she wasn't going to wait anymore and figured out a way to raise the money and get us across the border illegally. So I got here, I was an undocumented child at 3 years old. She did this with my brother who was 6 months old at the time. Didn't tell anyone other than her sister, and then ended up in San Diego, picked up the phone, called my dad and said, we're here, come get us. And my dad was like, what are you talking about? You're here where? And she's like, if you're not coming, I'll take a bus. I know how to get to Oakland. So we ended up here in Oakland. I've been here my whole life. I graduated from Fremont High School, went to elementary school here, public schools. I've started working in the labor movement when I was 21 years old. Actually, I was doing community organizing. And I was asked by an SEIU local who I was working with if I'd be interested in going to work for them. At first I said, no, I'm cool, I don't want to do that. And then at the time I was actually a single mother of 2 little boys. And, they said, we got health care. And I said, okay, I'm in. And one of them had asthma, and still does. And so I ended up, by the time I left SEIU, was a healthcare workers union. I left as the assistant director of the nursing home division, organizing and negotiating contracts. Then I went to work for the Labor Council, actually. I was recruited here as a political director. I did this for a couple of years. Then I was recruited by a union called AFSCME, and they represent the University of California workers. And they asked me to come be their statewide political director / lobbyist. And they said, oh, you only have to go to Sacramento a couple of days a week. But being who I am, I was there every single day. If a legislator was in session, I was in session. I drove up and down for 5 years, and I wouldn't have changed it for the world. One of the things I learned was if you don't have people who look like me, who think like me at the table, then we don't get part of the dinner. We actually become part of the dinner. And it took a lot of, I never saw myself as a lobbyist, but I felt like it was my calling to make sure that I gave back and fought for those who gave me the opportunity to be standing in front of you today. And that's what I did. And then I got a call from the Labor Council saying, hey, you want to come back? You want to run for the seat? And I was crazy enough to say yes, and privileged enough to win. And now I'm here.
Other questions? Hi, thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to tell you that I'm an employer. I'm going to ask you about that, but I want to caveat it by saying, si se puede. I moved back to California because of Dolores. And when I worked in the film industry, I'm in the Directors Guild, which is a union. And when I worked in that industry, I had 8 or 9 different unions reporting to me in film. So I had to know all of their contracts, and it was crazy making because, they change all the time. So, but I learned that it's helpful to an employer to know what the rules are. So my question is, sorry, a long roundabout way, but my question is, there's a lot of employers in this room. What is the advantage to an employer to involve a union workforce?
I mean, you could, our largest employers, Kaiser, Port of Oakland, City, is that we're all able to have something in writing that kind of lays out and there's no second guessing. You have everything, but also you have a partnership. We've worked with responsible employers. We've been able to accomplish a lot of things, good things for the community. One example right now, I'm working with the Oakland A's and trying to make sure that they truly are rooted in Oakland. You talk about a responsible employer. They represent 8 of my unions. So I have thousands of workers that are are at risk of losing their jobs if they leave. So we've been able to partner to make sure that they're rooted in Oakland, they stay in Oakland, but that we have a good deal for everyone. So I would say that's the benefit in working collaboratively with the unions that your employer represents or works with.
I think we have time for one more question. Derek, did you have a question?
Liz, how are you?
I owe you a call.
You do. It's okay. It's okay.
And I think I owe you a call.
Everybody a call. Well, first of all, congratulations, new Rotarian. Like that. You got to join the club. And so my question is, being the first Latina in this position, congratulations. What challenges have you faced, and how have you overcome them?
Well, obviously, I mean, just walking in the room is a challenge, right? Just in the last, coming out of the presidency that we just had, where we had a literal target on our backs. As Latinos, as a Latina, as an undocumented, having to watch every single day the president of the United States talk about my family as criminals and putting babies like myself that I could have been put in a cage was extremely difficult and challenging. And having to interact with workers, who were having to be afraid every single day, just going to work, getting a flat tire, through COVID, somebody said, Liz, you signed up for this. I was like, I didn't sign up for a worldwide pandemic, but here we are, and one of the challenges there is like, again, having the voice to be able to say, my workers don't have the luxury of wondering if they're going to get sick or not, but they do know that they have to pay the rent. So my job is to make sure that they're safe and they can, do what they got to do. So that's been a challenge, but it's also been a privilege. I get to talk to folks like yourselves who really care about our community. I get to make a difference with kids who growing up didn't have someone who looked like them, who could stay up and say, no, it's okay for you to get up and fight and use your voice and fight back.
Liz, come over here. First of all, thank you so much for coming today. And in particular, you have these days of which we kind of focus on, Labor Day coming up, and it's often just sort of vacation day, but it's kind of nice to separate maybe a couple weeks away and hear what's the real story going on in the labor movement today. So we're privileged and honored to have you with us today. This year, we are highlighting the new Rotary area of focus, the environment. In your honor, we're making a donation to the Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group, SRAG, toward their focus on biodiversity, sustainable living, pollution, the climate, food systems, and a circular economy. Thank you so much for being a part of our meeting.
Thank you so much.
Also, as a speaker, as I began to say, if you didn't hear, Michael Morgan has been a speaker, I think, 3 times in the last few years, and he's starting a collection of our centennial book, but this is the first one for you. You may get another one if you join the club here. But
I joined already.
There's some paperwork involved. But we probably know how to get you in. As I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, our club is over 100 years old. We celebrated our centennial in 2008. And our own Linda Hamilton wrote a history of the Rotary Club in Oakland, which is also a history of Oakland. So you may find it interesting.
Thank you so much.
The centennial book. Thank you, Liz, for being with us. Pat Williams. Renea.
I would like to ring the bell in honor of Miss Liz, but more so in honor of your mom. Like, us women, we get it done. We gotta get it
done. So Renea Webb did, and Keith Yorarki would also like to ring the bell. Were there any online bell ringers, Jack? Just the one. Okay, Pat Williams, you here? Could you tease our next week's speaker, please?
Sure. Next year, we have a new high-profile neighbor who's coming to town, PG&E. They'll be leaving their San Francisco headquarters and moving into the Kaiser Center. So next week, to tell us about it and other developments at PG&E, we'll hear from Robert Kenny, who's the Vice President of Regulatory and External Affairs. He has over 30 years of experience in public utility field, and he's considered a national expert in public utility, regulatory, and policy development. So please come and join.
Thank you, Pat. So next week, the next 2 weeks are going to be a little bit different. The speaker will come on at the beginning of the meeting. So we'll open up the meeting, and then at 12:35, the speaker will be with us. Our speaker next week, actually, the executive team of PG&E, which he sits on, meets at noon. So he's able to join us the first half hour. So then we'll hold our club meeting afterwards. The following week, which we haven't explained yet, is professor and one of the leading experts on both AIDS and COVID at University of California, San Francisco, and she also will be joining us early because she starts her clinics at UCSF at 1 o'clock. So please come early for those. So thank you, everybody who rang the bell today. Michael Morgan and Mako Hatano, we so much welcome you and the Oakland Symphony as members of our club. Michael Bruck, thank you for sharing with us about cocktails for the president, and Ruth for buying us the first margarita next week. That's a week from today. Go Ruth. And Keith Uriarte, thank you for introducing Liz today, and especially to Liz Ortega for coming today. All the greeters and all and filling out. This is how fast it can happen. Organized labor gets it done. Thank you to all the greeters, the mic runners, and club service, and Jack for making AV work. It does work. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Remember, don't keep Rotary a secret. Serve to help others. And this meeting of the Rotary Club of Oakland is adjourned. Whoa. It's not adjourned. The meeting is, last thing is the A's on August 27th. We have 8 tickets left. So please join Stomper and the Oakland A's, and on the evening of August 27th, you can buy your ticket online or with Jesse. Thank you. This meeting is adjourned. Still made it by 1.